60 Minutes Overtime.
Did you come away liking him?
You know, I ended up liking him. I liked him when I first met him.
Walter Isaacson did more than 40 interviews with Jobs. In most of those interviews, Walter taped them. He told us that he had them and that he would share some of them with us.
All right, we got our work cut out for us.
Graham Messick, the producer, listened to the tapes.
All told, when Walter sent us the clips, which weren't always beautifully organized, we had about 2 hours to choose from. Now, a lot of that was Jobs just ruminating about life, and then other things were him talking about his competitors and his feelings about the industry.
I'd say Microsoft and Google had a lot in common. Microsoft never had the humanities and the liberal arts in their DNA. It was a pure technology company. And they just didn't get it. Even when they saw the Mac, they couldn't even copy it well. How dumb do you have to be to not see it once you see it, you know? But Google's the same way. They just don't get it.
Jobs had had a big fight with Google. He thought Google had ripped him off with the Android operating system. So he gets a call from Larry Page who says, I want to come by. I'm going to become the CEO of Google. I want tips. At first, Steve Jobs said, you know, his instinct was to say, hey, screw you, forget it. You know, you've ripped us off, I'm not going to deal with you. But then Jobs says, you know, I was mentored by the great people of this valley, you know, Packard, Hewlett, all these people who set something in place in Silicon Valley. They were good mentors. So he has Larry Page come by and visit. And he gives him some advice. And one piece of advice is focus. He says, don't be like Microsoft doing products all over the map. Figure out what you do best and keep it focused. Secondly, he says, don't try to be too nice as a CEO. You want a team only of A players. And it really means that at times you're going to have to blow some people off.
He had a lot to say about Google. He had a lot to say about Microsoft. He, oddly, was pretty favorable about Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg.
You know, we talk about social networks in the plural, but I don't see anybody other than Facebook out there. Just Facebook. They're dominating this. I admire Mark Zuckerberg. I only know him a little bit, but I admire him for not selling out, for wanting to make a company. I admire that a lot.
I'd like to announce one of our first partnerships today, and that is one with Microsoft. And I happen to have a special guest with me today via satellite downlink.
When they first met, Jobs was on the top of the world, and Gates was sort of just this little software writer. Then that got reversed.
When Steve first came up, it was going to be a lot cheaper computer than it ended up being, but that was fine.
People can sometimes love each other and hate each other at the same time.
And Bill ended up the wealthiest guy around. And if that was his goal, then he achieved it. But I mean, it's never been my goal. And I even wonder in the end if it was really his goal. I don't know.
His relationship with Bill Gates is very long and very complicated.
And near the end, a lot of people wanted to come and visit. So Bill Gates calls as he wants to come by. They set something up, and they sit for 3-4 hours just reminiscing, just talking about being the grand old men of the digital age. But then they also talked about the great difference they had, which was Steve Jobs believing that everything should be connected, end-to-end, integrated tightly. And Gates feeling that that was not a good business model. You should license your software so different manufacturers could make things. And Gates is somewhat generous to him at the end and gracious. And he says, you know, you proved that your model works. And Jobs is rather gracious in return. He says, well, you know, your model of licensing it out, that worked as well. I guess we were both okay. Then, of course, when Gates told me the story and recounted it to me, he said, what I didn't tell Steve was that it only works when you got a Steve Jobs. So I went and told that to Jobs. And Jobs, who can always be prickly, said, that's, you know, bull. Anybody could have done it. Of course, you need some taste to do it. And they said, well, you said that his model worked as well. He said, yeah, it works, but only if you don't mind making crappy products.
I believe that he did this book in part because he knew that a lot of people would write about him after he was gone, and that some of it he wouldn't like. And he wanted to have a chance to answer them in advance. Told Walter that he wanted people to hear what he had to say.